Mr. Green is recognized for 60 minutes as the designee of the Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the grandson of a Methodist preacher, and I would also add whose wife, my grandmother, was a missionary, I am proud to rise today to present HRES 1090, recognizing Islam as one of the great religions of the world. I'm proud to acknowledge that this resolution was introduced on August 21st of 2020 with 3 original co-sponsors: the Honorable Rashida Tlaib, the Honorable Ilhan Omar, and my friend who is with me today, the Honorable Andre Carson. I will say much more about the resolution, but I do want to at this time acknowledge my friend who's present from the 7th of Indiana, and I would have him consume as much time as he desires, after which I will return to the microphone. The Honorable Andre Carson, a wordsmith par excellence.
Thank you, Dr. Green, Congressman Green, Chairman Green, Judge Green, Pastor Green, Public Servant Al Green. Thank you. I rise today in support of my colleague's resolution recognizing Islam as one of the great religions of the world. I commend my friend, Representative Green, for honoring Islam. You know, this action helps to honor the millions of Muslims of many different backgrounds who proudly call America home. As one of 3 Muslims currently serving in Congress, it is my great privilege to speak here today, Mr. Speaker, in the People's House about our special faith. Though we are a minority in this country, we have participated fully in the story of our nation since its earliest days. Even before America's founding and our Declaration of Independence, this brilliant declaration enshrined freedom of faith and religion for all of us. Today, there are Muslims in all parts of the country who are business owners, who are teachers, construction workers, engineers, lawyers, judges, elected officials. The first Muslim in Congress, my friend, comes to mind, Keith Ellison. We now have sisters Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And the list goes on, statewide and locally. You know, throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, Mr. Speaker, you'd be hard-pressed to find a hospital in this great nation without a Muslim healthcare worker on the front lines serving fellow Americans, not just in urban centers, but in suburbia, rural parts of our country. You know, as more and more Muslims call America home, Mr. Speaker, we will continue working tirelessly, guided by our faith, to ensure our great country lives up to the principles of equality, compassion, and opportunity for all. Our faith keeps us motivated every day to advance these great goals. You know, around the world, billions of Muslims are also engaged in this struggle, also using their faith as a guide. We've seen what's happened with Uyghur Muslims. We're seeing the dispute in Kashmir. We're seeing conflict dealing with the Israeli-Palestinian question. And sadly, we still see Muslims who endure hurtful stereotypes and discrimination on this journey. But our faith teaches us to be bold, to be brave, and to always choose love over hate. So we will not be deterred, Mr. Speaker. I'm a proud Muslim, I'm a proud American, and I'm honored to be a member of a very diverse and growing global community. And I'm thankful to live in a country that enshrines the right to practice this faith. We wouldn't have the foundation for American Muslims in this country, Mr. Speaker, were it not for the contributions of African American Muslims. Scholars say 30, 40, maybe even 50% of the slaves who were brought here from West Africa were Muslim. We see Muslims as first responders. I was one of them. We see Muslims who were a part of responding to the call to fight against terrorism in a post-9/11 reality, and oftentimes thwarting potential attacks that you'll never hear about in the news because Muslims are on the front lines in our law enforcement community and in our intelligence services. Muslims have been critical in this country with establishing Islam and promoting self-respect, self-determination, creating your own enterprises and businesses. We hear terms now like stay woke. I submit to you, Mr. Speaker, that terminology came from the contributions and the foundation laid by African American Muslims. Began as a kernel in the inception of this country, and it started to blossom in the early 1920s and 30s during the Great Depression. And during those times, you had variations of Islam that was not Arabized, because if it was an Arab-presented Islam, it wouldn't have been attractive. It certainly wouldn't have been attractive to me. But the Islam that was presented was created in a way to fight against the poison and the toxicity of white supremacy. And now you have a beautiful religion with an interfaith coalition with Christian brothers and sisters, Jewish brothers and sisters, Sikhs, Hindus, atheists, Buddhists, all coming together to make America a better place. Now, some people are comfortable with talking about Islam. And in their critiques of Islam, they overlook the hypocrisy of their own faith. You cannot really call yourself a lover of God and show hate for others of a different faith. You cannot call yourself an elected official and a representative of the people if you're only committed to serving and representing one segment of the population. And you certainly can't call yourself a true public servant without recognizing the contributions that have been made by this wonderful community. I salute Representative Green for his bold leadership, for his visionary leadership as a proud Christian man in the tradition of Jesus Christ, knowing that in my Father's house there are many mansions, to stand up and recognize the wonderful religion of Islam. I commend you. I thank you, because we are America. I yield back, Mr. Speaker.
I thank the gentleman for his very kind words. He's more than generous. And I also thank him for his service in Congress. He and I started out together on the Financial Services Committee. He has since moved on to the Intelligence Committee and is doing an outstanding job serving his country as an American Muslim. Mr. Speaker, I indicated that I am the grandson of a preacher, Methodist, but I'm also a very proud Baptist. My grandfather would not hold it against me. Religion is something that each person has to make decisions about for himself or herself. It's not something that we impose on people. This is a free country, a country wherein you have the right to be whatever you choose to be within the spirit of what the law allows. And this is the case with religion. You can be whatever you choose to be associated with whichever religion you choose to, within the spirit of what the law allows. So I want to just say a few words about now why I have brought this resolution. I've lived in this country all of my life. I love my country. It means something to me. I respect the words liberty and justice for all in the Pledge of Allegiance. I respect the concept in the Gettysburg Address, government of the people, by the people, for the people. It means something to me to know that a person who came from what I consider humble beginnings has had the opportunities to stand in the well of the House of Representatives. So I love my country, but it doesn't mean that I overlook some of the things that have happened to me along life's way that were not so pleasant. I had persons who called themselves Christians to burn a cross in my yard. I don't consider them Christians. They call themselves Christians. I've had persons who call themselves Christians to say some very ugly things to me and do some very ugly things to me. But let me tell you what it did not do to me. It did not cause me to conclude that those persons who wore the hoods, who came to my yard, burned a cross, it did not cause me to conclude that Christianity was represented in what they did. The people who said ugly things and did ugly things to me in the name of Christianity, they did not cause me to conclude that that's what Christianity is all about. I'm mentioning this because, quite candidly, I want other people to understand that Islam is a peaceful religion, that there are people who abuse others in the name of religion. But that doesn't mean that the religion is about the abuse that is being perpetrated. So I'm honored today to present this resolution, and I rise in solidarity with my Muslim brothers and sisters around the world. I do so because I have seen them in action. In Houston, Texas, we have storms. When these storms have come through our city, Hurricane Harvey being one example, the Muslim community was right there to do all that was necessary to help others. One of the greatest callings that you have in any religion is to help somebody. They have adhered to the call for justice. They have been there to march and protest for freedom and justice for other people. This community has been there with aid and comfort for people who have been left homeless. They've been there with aid and comfort for people who have suffered harm by way of their physical well-being. Muslim doctors have helped people, and I've seen the evidence of it. There's a clinic in Houston, the Ibn Sina Clinic, and they have been assisting people with the COVID virus. Free tests are being administered. This community has been helpful in my city. Persons from the community have served in public office, on city council. We have persons who are serving as precinct judges. The community is there and a part of the greater Houston community. Houston is a very diverse city. The Muslim community enhances the diversity of the city of Houston. This religion is a complete system of strong moral convictions that promotes peace, equality, and social justice. Islam is the second largest and fastest growing religion in the world. America is home to one of the most diverse Muslim populations. It has within it almost every ethnicity, country, and school of thought. There are approximately 3.45 million Muslims of all ages living in the United States of America and this is as of 2016. This is the last information available to me. In an overwhelming measure, Muslims make a significant, positive, and growing contribution to our nation. We have successful Muslims in all areas of our national life. Names that come to mind for a good many Americans would include Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, would include one who was known as Cassius Clay, but became Muhammad Ali. There are Muslims in all areas of life, including business, sport, media, culture, medicine, law, and politics. Although American Muslims make up approximately 1% of the U.S. population, most Americans can name some of these prominent Muslims that I've called to your attention. Another is Malcolm X. Many persons don't revere Malcolm X, but I'm proud to say that the United States of America has had Malcolm X on a postage stamp. Of course, his name moved from X to Shabazz. The nation has honored many American Muslims for their service and sacrifice, including Salman Hamdani. Mr. Hamdani was there at 9/11. He made sacrifices at 9/11 as a first responder. Many American Muslims are also civically engaged, working with their neighbors to better their communities. They are members of the Rotary Club, the veterans of foreign wars. Yes, Muslims serve in the military of the United States of America. They are members of school boards, and they volunteer in our communities. They actively engage in charitable giving. And I say this with some understanding of it as I have seen it in action. I have seen the Muslim community not only give their in-kind services, but their American dollars to worthy causes. In short, the American Muslims and the organizations they create are part of the fiber and fabric of the great country that I love. Today, during this pandemic, many Muslims work on the front lines, as was said by my dear brother Andre Carson, Congressman Carson. They work on the front line. They work as essential workers. They put their lives on the line to help others through the pain of the pandemic. I believe that we must acknowledge and appreciate that Muslims further the diversity and success of our great country. To this end, I trust that persons will join me in demonstrating solidarity with and support for Muslim members of the community throughout the world by recognizing Islam as one of the great religions of the world. I hold in my hand the actual resolution that has been filed. I will not go through the whereases, but I do want to go to the be it resolved. Be it resolved to demonstrate solidarity and support for members of the community of Islam in the United States and throughout the world. The House of Representatives recognizes the Islamic faith as one of the great religions of the world. I thank you for the time, Mr. Speaker, but I also want to thank the House leadership for the time. I do so because there was a time in the history of this country when a person who was born into poverty, who had to suffer the slings and arrows of invidious discrimination, would not be allowed to stand in the House of Representatives and present a resolution honoring Islam. We've come a long way. I like to acknowledge the fact that we've come a long way, because too many proclaim the notion that nothing has changed. The mere fact that I'm standing here bringing this resolution means that things have changed. Many may not agree, but things have changed to the extent that I've got the freedom to speak my mind with this resolution on the floor of the House of Representatives. So I thank all of the leadership for acknowledging the change and allowing the resolution to be presented. With this said, I kindly and respectfully yield back the balance of my time.